An au pair who flipped on her former boss and lover faces cross-examination. We're breaking down her body language and testimony. And in Ohio, the jury reaches a verdict in the case where an elderly man shot an unsuspecting Uber driver. Who did the jury believe? And in Los Angeles, a rideshare driver is claiming assault. What led to the arrest of 24 and designated survivor actor Kiefer Sutherland? The court of law is done for the day in those cases. Let's call to order Court of Opinion. Welcome to Court of Opinion. I'm Julia Janae. Thank you for joining us. A jury in Virginia listened to a second day of testimony today from a family's au pair turned co-defendant. The defendant that is on trial is Brendan Banfield. He's accused of being the mastermind of an elaborate murder plot to kill his wife by luring a man that he found on a fetish dating website to his house. Prosecutors say he and the family's live-in nanny, Juliana Magalhães, they were having an affair and that she helped him plot the murders. From there, prosecutors say Banfield staged the scene to make it look like this other man, Joseph Ryan, stabbed his wife and that Banfield only shot him in self-defense. But the co-defendant au pair, she took the stand to expose her former lover's plan as part of a plea deal that the defense is calling a sweetheart deal. Let's get you caught up on what you may have missed today from that testimony.
What ultimately made you decide that you were going to enter this plea?
Was the thought of being the right thing to do. I guess we all deserved to know what would happen, and I just couldn't hold it. I just couldn't give it to myself, the feeling of shame and guilt and sadness and all those feelings.
And so you decided to enter a plea. What made you decide to cooperate and testify against the defendant in this case?
Well, I got the plea because it was also the right thing to do, and also because I had a potential of getting less time.
Ma'am, you were just speaking with Ms. Bristler about letters.
Yes.
And that was a common way for you to communicate, correct?
Yes.
Is this a letter you wrote?
Yes.
Please read the highlighted portion.
Yes. It says, they want me to cooperate against you, your son. Since the beginning, they've told us they could make, from my charges something very simple called misdemeanor, and I wouldn't be charged with this if I decided to cooperate with them. They know I'm not doing that. I don't have anything to cooperate with them. With what they say that happened, I know it didn't make them happy, so they will do anything to hold me here, anything for them to win. They've got it so far, right? I have no idea what they are making up, faking stuff, lies, etc.
Okay, and there's another portion down below.
And I said I would give my life for his, and I would never do anything to hurt him or against him. Whatever they're saying, whatever they want to believe, I don't care. I would take the blame for both of us.
And this is a letter to Mrs. Banfield, correct?
To his mother.
His mother, Tess.
Yes.
Okay. Ma'am, if you could look at the screen, do you see a new letter there?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Can you read the highlighted portion?
Yeah, sure. It says, I would do anything for you. If they want me to turn against you, if they think or whatever they believe, and if they want to blame me for that, that's okay. I can take the blame. I'll never do anything to hurt you or against you.
Who was it you told that Brendan planned this whole thing for the first time, and when was that?
Yes, my mother.
And when was
Because,
that?
how can I tell you? I don't remember the date.
I mean, with all due respect, you don't remember a lot of details.
Yeah.
That's what's really concerning about this.
Well, if you were in my shoes, you don't remember either.
What Mr. Carroll is insinuating, right, is that you used the Commonwealth's evidence to make up a story about what happened. Is that what happened?
It is not.
Juliana spent most of the day on cross-examination today. She is done, and the Commonwealth State's case begins again tomorrow morning. So without further ado, let's bring in our guest panel to break down what we saw today. Joining us in studio, we have trial attorney and CEO of Georgia Trial Consulting, Madeline Somerville. And joining us remotely, we have criminal defense attorney, federal litigator, and managing partner of the Lettingham Law Firm, Jessica Lettingham is with us, and trial attorney and former deputy public defender, Philip Dubé. We have got a power panel for everyone. Excited to get your opinions on today. Madeline, I'm going to start with you.
Let's do it.
We have this witness on the stand who is huge for the state, but also really huge for the defense. Do you think she spent all that time on cross today? The defense made any moves on showing that she's the mastermind here?
I don't think she looks too much like a mastermind. I don't think we got mastermind vibes from her so much today. I think there was somewhat of an accent barrier. It was a little bit difficult for her to understand, and so that causes the jurors to lean in the entire time because they're trying to pay attention to what she's saying. So if there's any people on the jury who have difficulty hearing, which usually there's one or two on every jury, that is always impacted. I know that seems like a technical thing, but it's true. But I think that from the way that she came in today, I know her appearance is very different than it used to be, but I just don't think that she came in with the vibrato or the tension that you would need to be able to attribute like a criminal mastermind moniker to her.
Jessica, your opinion on the au pair?
I absolutely disagree. I think the au pair comes in as a liar, like a bold-faced liar. She changed her appearance for the court appearance compared to what she used to be, and then all day, I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember. You don't remember what time you would make lunches at, or what time, or who would grab the laptop? She did not come off as truthful, and if I was a juror, I would be so done with her.
Philip Dubé, she got a deal that the defense says is a sweetheart deal, time served, and she goes back to her home country of Brazil.
Exactly, and I would have told her to romp on it and not waste any time. You take that deal with dispatch. All you got to do is waive removal, take the plea and testify. I'd hightail out of it. She can be home in time for Carnival down in Rio. So yeah, she got a sweetheart deal, right? Let's call it what it is. And by the way, I disagree with my co-panelist. She didn't change her appearance. You know what happened? She's been locked up for such a long time. Her highlighted roots grew out. She's been locked up since what, October of 23? She's not going to get highlights and touch-ups and all that good stuff locked up. So this is her a la natural.
Madeline, you're not only a jury consultant, but also body language expert. What's your read on not only her on the stand, but her former lover sitting there at the defense table?
You know, I guess it's hard for me to make an assessment about her when I was so distracted by him, because his body language to me was so transparent. It was just what I got from him almost the entire time from his micro expressions was shame, frustration, and guilt. Really, from
and lots of writing.
And lots of vigorous writing.
Mm-hmm.
But what I saw mostly from him was, like, especially during the 911 call, that was my favorite part of the testimony to watch. He was so uncomfortable, and he was fake wiping his eyes. Like there was no indication in his forehead that he was upset. It was just like blatant gestures that didn't match what was going on his face.
Jessica, let's talk about not only the plea deal, but you have Madeline, who was arrested first. And there was a period of time that she actually did not flip on him. She was behind bars, still sending him letters that were love letters, essentially. But she said, hey, his mom was paying my legal defense at the time.
Yep, and that's what it came down to. They stopped paying, and she didn't want to be in jail. She had a rough, go at it in jail. And what does she do? She gets the sweetheart deal. And I really think that the prosecutors messed up with such a great deal because, again, the jury's going to say, well, she would say anything. This whole story sounds like they got it from NCIS, like an episode of it. And now it's even worse because she's going to go home to Brazil as soon as she's done with this. So I think this entire case on everybody is just kind of a mess here, whether it's the prosecutor or the defense.
Philip, I see you reacting to when Jessica is talking about this plot. What's your thought about the level of intricacy the prosecution says went on for this horrific tragedy?
I think they're giving this kid way too much credit for having concocted this whole scheme. We know good and well that this IRS agent was the one who masterminded it and used her as the patsy to help him carry it out. And unfortunately, she fell prey to it. And by the way, even though she is getting a sweetheart deal, in theory, it does carry up to 10 years. And frankly, 10 years is not a walk in the park. It's still some pretty hard time. So yeah, she probably will get time served, but in theory, because of the charge, she could do a hard 10 actual years.
Let's talk about the plea, and we're going to listen to some of her testimony where she mentions why she took the plea deal.
What ultimately made you decide that you were going to enter this plea?
Was the thought of being the right thing to do. I guess we all deserved to know what really happened, and I just couldn't hold it. I just couldn't keep it to myself. The feeling of shame and guilt and sadness and all those feelings.
That's kind of the closest we got to empathy from this witness. Most of her testimony was very matter of fact, a little monotone. What did you think about whether or not she needed to be more empathetic?
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, actually. And it's difficult to attribute like general stereotypes about feelings to each person because everybody truly is different. So what you need to do is you establish a baseline of how she usually behaves. And because she was on the witness stand all day, then you get to see how she behaves otherwise. So if the jury even felt a little bit of a twinge of difference, it'll make a difference being there because a lot of times people are waiting for her to break open like that. And it's very difficult to tell if you're not actually in the courtroom. But if they noticed a lilt in her voice or like literally any change after watching what her baseline was, then it will have made somewhat of a difference. But if you are a casual observer or if you're somebody who had difficulty understanding her and you were already frustrated trying to listen, I don't think that'll make much of a difference. And then actually Jessica's point comes back in because I think that if you are going to be successful as a prosecutor in this, as a defense attorney in this case, then she probably made the best argument that you could.
Oh yeah, she's going to be subject to recall, so we may see her back on the stand. And again, that testimony begins again 10 a.m. in the morning. We will have it here on Court TV. We need to take a break, but on the other side, we're going to head out to Ohio to take a look at the best evidence jurors saw today with the defense case for a trial of a man who shot an Uber driver. He said he thought that she was a scammer demanding money from him.
Help! The other way. Help! Come on, get out! Help! Yeah. Yes, yeah, I know what you're after. You're after mercy. Help!
Tonight on Closing Arguments, Brendan Banfield's lover and co-defendant returns to the stand in the Au Pair Affair murder trial. We're live with the latest from today's gripping testimony.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Okay, in the Common Pleas Court of Clark County, Ohio, State of Ohio, plaintiff versus William Brock, defendant. Case number 24-CR-0278, verdict form count 1. We, the jury, being duly impaneled and sworn, do find the defendant, William Brock, guilty of the murder of Lolitha Hall.
That's the verdict that came in the last hour from Ohio. The jury deliberating an hour and a half in the case against William Brock, finding him guilty on all charges, including murder and kidnapping in the Killing the Messenger murder trial. He's an 83-year-old defendant. He was captured on dash cam video confronting an Uber driver, Lolitha Hall, at gunpoint before he shot her 4 times. Now, investigators say Hall was sent to Brock's home by scammers who were demanding money from him, but Hall wasn't aware of anything. She was contacted through an app and sent to this home to pick up a package. Now, during opening statements, the defense said that Brock was reasonably convinced that he was about to be hurt if he didn't comply with demands, but the state said the shooting is inexcusable. It's the defense case today. That's what happened. So let's take a look at the evidence that was presented to jurors. Here's what our court of opinion team chose as the day's best evidence. The defendant taking the stand, and he testified that he received a call from a lawyer claiming to represent his grandson Matt in a vehicle crash. And that's the notepad that corroborated this story, because that's his kitchen table notepad that he writes things down on as soon as someone calls. So he wrote down the name of the judge, the case number, and all of the details that this scammer gave him. Now, he testified that as the day went on, after he had collected the $12,000 they said he needed for bail, he started to become suspicious. He thought that they didn't know his full name and didn't know the color and model of his grandson's truck. And then he said this happened just before he went outside to confront the Uber driver.
Said you get the door open. I don't give a damn who you are. You're gonna die. I'm gonna kill you. Your family, women's gonna be raped around you. Whoever's close to you will die. You son of a bitch, this is not a game. Your ass is mine. You do exactly as you're told. That I need to get a call from the driver's phone that she has the money, or this is all happening. I know who you are, where you live, how to get there, have drones. Your time is up.
So this is the voice that he said he heard on the phone of the man in charge telling him, a woman is at your door, give her the money or I will kill you and your family. Still with us, let's get a reaction from our power panel. We have Madeline Somerville and Philip Dubé. Jessica Lettingham, we're working on getting her signal back up. But Madeline, he took the stand today, which was necessary in a self-defense case.
Sure.
But what do you think about this kind of evidence and the jury's verdict?
You know, when I was first preparing for coming in tonight, looking at the facts of the case, before I saw the video, I thought, well, surely the jury's going to understand that elderly people like this get preyed on by scammers, and they'll probably think, you know, they got the wrong guy, right? The person that's really responsible are the scammers who did this. Then I saw the video, and I think that's exactly what happened to the jurors too. Once you see that video, it looks really bad. It looks like unreasonable, right? Because she looks so normal. She just looks like a regular person in the way that she reacts. And the thing is that I think that the defense really failed, because what you're not allowed to do is technically, right, is the golden rule problem. You're not supposed to put yourself in the shoes of the person there. What they should have done is explain how he felt at the time based upon his cognitive ability, based upon his age, based upon how panicked and worried he would have been in that position. They did not do a good enough job of explaining that, and that's why he lost today, I think.
Yeah, Philip, they didn't give him a chance to even talk about any remorse. He spent the entire direct examination talking about Lolitha Hall as if she is the villain, because in his mind, that's what he said she was. But there was never a moment where they said or asked him, well, how did you feel after you learned that she was innocent?
Right. I think they were trying to home in on the fact that he had a neurodegenerative disorder and that he was not receiving and processing things the way a normal person otherwise would, that he had that quote unquote aging brain, or that atrophied brain where your brain cells are just wasting away, which is oftentimes a precursor to Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's disease, and all of those terrible, terrible diseases. So I think they put him front and center to look sympathetic to the jury as this aging, sort of geriatric, pathetic soul who could not take agency over his own behavior due to this neurodegenerative disorder. And unfortunately, even though in his mind and his counsel's mind, he thought that he acted reasonably, the jury found otherwise.
Yeah, you know, I want to bring in our second piece of evidence. I do want to ask you, Madeline, though, about what he was like on the stand. But this is what we chose as another piece of important defense evidence, but it was used against him on cross-examination by the state. This is the dash cam video focused on when he blocked the victim here. So this again was a state exhibit during cross-examination, and during direct examination, Brock testified a lot about Hall coming inside of his home, and he didn't know how she got inside of his home, but it seemed like she wasn't going to leave. Take a listen.
In that video, you can see that she starts to go to her car, and you cut between them. Is that right? Do you want me to play the video again?
It shows on the video.
I mean,
I didn't realize it at the time.
okay, but you do it, right? You cut her off.
Well, I was in a state of shock at that time. I do not remember.
He says he was in a state of shock. Madeline, what do you think about his demeanor and his presentation on this stand? Because Philip's trying to argue about a neurodegenerative issue, but he was on the stand and came across pretty clear.
Yeah, so just bouncing off of that, and actually my husband and I argue about this all the time because he's an attorney also, but the next time I teach this, I'm using this clip. So here's the issue. I believe that the jury acts as a balancer. And if they feel like you are advocating too hard for your own side, they'll start advocating for the other. I think that they use this too much as an excuse, and they leaned too heavily on it. Sometimes when you have such a heinous act that's committed, whether it's justified or not, if the jury feels like he doth protest too much, they will start naturally taking up for the other side. And this might be a great example of that.
Lolita Hall's family was there inside of the gallery. They packed it. The jury could have taken note of that. Philip, your reaction to that video, the blocking of the victim after he's saying, you know, she was coming after me.
Well, it was probably appropriate because it's such a grisly, unnecessary type image. Nobody needs to see that. I think it's pretty clear what happened. I think the problem that Mr. Brock had under Ohio law is that even given this sort of aging brain, it's a medical problem. It is not a mental defect under the law. So unfortunately, he didn't qualify for an insanity defense, incompetency, or any other type of mental defect, and is just a creature of Ohio law. Now, the court can take that all into consideration at sentencing, given his age and the neurodegenerative effects of his aging brain. And I think it was all borne out in some CT scans that were done of his head. So the court may show some leniency. It remains to be seen. But you have to temper that with sympathy for this victim who definitely did not deserve what happened to her. It was just hideous. There was no reason why he couldn't call 911 or maybe even hold her there at gunpoint till the police arrived, rather than just take the law into his own hands.
Yeah, this phone is really important here because you hear him on the dash cam video saying, "Give me the phone." And he testified today that he believed the phone was her weapon, essentially, because he believed she was going to push a button, call someone, and tell them he didn't give me the money, which would trigger him being killed. He didn't even know how they found him, how they sent someone to his address. Let's look at another piece of evidence, rather, that we saw inside of the courtroom today. These were the call logs from Brock's phone. And it's really important. This was defense evidence. They wanted to show the calls that he made. He did make calls to his grandson, Matt, to try and see if he could confirm it. Matt's father and grandmother, they didn't answer the phone.
Oh, no.
So that day, he wasn't able to actually get the information that he needed in real time. But he didn't make a call to 911 until after the shooting. That's something that the prosecution made sure to bring up on cross-examination. What do you think about that, Madeline? The phone, he tried, it seems, but not to call the authorities.
I think that the fact that he followed up with the grandparents, whoever this was supposed to be related to try to confirm the story, shows that he was in a fit. He was just in a tizzy, worried and scared, and he said they're going to come get you. They have your address. They're going to come get your family. I think that the defense did a really terrible job of putting the jurors in the mindset that he would have been in, because if he really believed that the phone was that weapon, that if she pushed a button, that they were coming after him, and the jury just didn't believe that it would have been reasonable for him to believe that. But if he made all these calls and he tried to check out the story, he was playing along with everything. And the jury, if that's the truth, that should have been shown to them.
Philip, today, though, I learned for the first time that he had figured out it was a scam before he went outside to confront Lolita. He realized they don't know the information about my grandson's full name. They don't know his truck. Do you think that's what stuck in the juror's mind, that he had that moment to change course?
Yes, I do. And remember, in Ohio, unfortunately, he is subject to their self-defense laws. Normally, when we think of self-defense, we think of that perfect self-defense when you are entitled or privileged under the law to use deadly force to save your own life because your own life is in immediate peril. Contrast that with the imperfect self-defense where you have an honest subjective belief in the need to use deadly force, but objectively it's unreasonable. So even though maybe in his mind he believed it was necessary and that his own life may have been in jeopardy, it was objectively unreasonable to this jury. So what happens? He loses the benefit of self-defense, and he doesn't get any imperfect self-defense because it doesn't exist under Ohio law. And that's the misfortune.
Extremely well said.
All right, Philip and Madeline, stand by. We have to leave it there. We will, of course, keep you updated on when sentencing is for William Brock. Next, we are going beyond the gavel, breaking down the biggest true crime cases that aren't inside a courtroom yet with a trial, but the investigation has all of us intrigued. An Ohio couple murdered in their home. Police say by the woman's ex-husband. And new details about the surgeon are coming out, this alleged killer. Straight ahead.
What we can say, this was a targeted attack. This was a domestic violence related attack. As we know, McKee is the ex-husband of Monique Tepe.
Welcome back. We are taking you now beyond the gavel. In Ohio, for the first time, authorities providing details in a press conference that happened today. And this is over the murders of dentist Spencer Tepe and his wife Monique. They were found shot to death inside of their home earlier this month. Their two children, young children, inside unharmed but unmonitored. After a 10-day manhunt for their killer, Monique Tepe's ex-husband, Michael McKee, he was arrested in Illinois where he was living and is still awaiting extradition. Now, police in that press conference, they didn't give any motive for why this happened. But we have also learned details about McKee. He's a vascular doctor, vascular surgeon. He was practicing at Las Vegas's Surgical Associates at one time, and there in Nevada, his medical license had expired in June of 2025. So take a look at these court records in that malpractice suit. They show that McKee is part of this malpractice lawsuit involving the clinic. And in the suit, a patient says that as a result of McKee not supervising properly, a device fracturing inside of his body was the result. The patient had to get emergency surgery to retrieve that device. Now, whether or not that goes to the case against him, it is interesting in terms of the details about someone that police didn't give any hints about during that 10-day manhunt. Let's bring in our power panel, see what they think about this case and where we are now. We have with us Madeline Somerville, Jessica Lettingham back with us, and Philip Dubé. Jessica, I'll let you start us off on this one. Tell me your opinion of this case, where we are, and your opinion of this defendant.
This case is really sad to me. We always hear a lot about domestic violence, and there's been a lot in the news lately about how, well, if you're with a man and you think he's going to hit you or could possibly kill you, just leave. Just leave. I think Bill Maher famously said just about 6 months ago, well, this woman left. We don't know that he was an abuser, but she left. And not only was she murdered, but her new husband was as well. Unfortunately, you can't always escape violence. Once you've kind of been in that person's orbit, you can't get out no matter what. So to me, this is a very sad case.
Yeah, that adds to the chilling nature of this case. Philip Dubé, talk about McKee and the evidence that they have against him, because that divorce, to Jessica's point, we don't know what was going on in that relationship. It was uncontested, very quick. Their marriage was 2 years old, and some people say they were only really together for about 6 months of that marriage.
Yeah, we have a nominal evidence droppings trail against him, to be fair to Dr. McKee. And, I actually find this to be a fantastic case, and I would actually defend him pro bono, frankly. I would want to look into whether or not there might be a jilted love interest that he was involved with, and that maybe he sort of proclaimed his love still for the ex-wife, and the new love interest wanted to have the last word and maybe did them both in and frame the good doctor. I am hoping that there's going to be some third party out there who is framing and really setting up the doctor, and we're too quick to judge him and rush to judgment. So let's wait and see what else they have. But from where I'm sitting here now, I think there's more to this story.
Woo. So that is very creative, and I would certainly want him defending me if I were on trial. But it is important to know that you actually can offer alternate theories to a jury about what you think happened as long as there's evidence for it. But I think here, while I can't make comments about his body language, I can comment on his personality as a surgeon, right? So surgeons in general, and you can't assign it to every single person who's in that category. They're very precise. They're very, they can cut themselves off emotionally because they have to in order to be able to work on something. So if you need to be able to be cold, you can. And obviously he's capable of being a mastermind and planning something. Now, I don't know why they've called this a domestic violence issue. I don't know if there was stalking, perhaps, or anything that might have happened. But I agree that there's more to this story for sure that we don't know that would have put this into a domestic violence category. But it is so sad, and those two kids, it's just, they're gonna have to make a really compelling case to get this defendant out of that sympathy place where we're just wanting justice for these poor children.
Oh, yeah, and you mentioned what police said about the domestic violence nature of this. Let's play that clip and talk about it on the other side.
We can say that we have the suspect's vehicle on neighborhood video surveillance arriving just before the murders and leaving shortly after. Detectives were able to link this vehicle to McKee. The vehicle was located in Rockford, Illinois, and evidence was found that showed McKee in possession of the vehicle before and after the homicides. We can also say that multiple weapons were taken from the property of McKee. And there's a preliminary link from our NIBIN to one of the weapons that ties it to the homicides.
All right, it was part of the press conference. There was another portion of it where they said this was a targeted domestic violence incident. Jessica, react to that. I know you were also trying to react to Philip Dubé's alternate theory here, potential, spoken like a longtime public defender, but your opinion on the language that the press conference gave on this.
The language is kind of what gave me that gut feeling that she has some history with him and domestic violence. The fact that they're using that, the fact that they're saying targeted, it's giving me the gut feeling that there's more here with her trying to escape his behaviors. I love the fantasy. I love that novel that Philip Dubé is going to write for us all one day, but I don't think that is the case here.
Philip Dubé, what happens next? He hasn't been extradited yet. He's already waived his right to waived his argument against extradition. So he is coming back to Ohio where this happened. What all are investigators looking at in his background right now?
Yeah, he'll be brought back from the asylum state to the requesting state of Ohio. He'll be appointed counsel. He'll be arraigned on the charges. They'll receive the copy of the complaint, assuming there's no grand jury indictment, and all the discovery. And they'll be told what it is that they have to prove that he is guilty of this beyond a reasonable doubt. But what I find interesting that the officers told the press is that they have a car that's linked to him, but they don't have him behind the wheel. All you have is a car that may be registered to the good doctor. The real question is that will need to be developed. Who is behind the wheel? And I am telling you, there is more to this story, and I'm anxious to hear how it unfolds.
We examine all sides here on Court of Opinion. Let's get to our break. Our power panel is coming with us, and we're going to get their hot takes on the cold facts, their opinions on today's biggest cases, including these two celebrities facing new charges and a famed lawyer speaking out about exiting a high-profile murder case. That's next.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, Brendan Banfield's lover and co-defendant returns to the stand in the Au Pair Affair murder trial. We're live with the latest from today's gripping testimony.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on Court TV.
I'm going to ask you a lot of personal questions.
From the crime scene to the courtroom, this is Victim to Verdict.
Everyone has this heightened sense of anticipation. Welcome back to Hot Takes on the Cold Facts. We are going to get the hot takes from our court of opinion panelists. And first, let's get to our headline. This is a big one that has everyone talking today. An actor, Timothy Busfield, he made his first court appearance today after he surrendered himself on those child sex abuse charges. And he's now facing a new civil sex abuse claim. Now, Busfield is being held without bond. He faces a new sexual abuse claim by a 16-year-old girl. The victim's dad reported it to police yesterday amid all of the headlines about the ones involving a 7- and 8-year-old boy. Now, the 16-year-old says the abuse happened years ago during an audition where Busfield tried to kiss the girl and put his hand down her pants. Now, we also know that there's heavily armed federal agents that rammed down the door today of Busfield's upstate New York home in a dramatic raid. And yesterday, less than an hour it took after that when he turned himself in. Let's bring in our power panel to get their takes on this. And just a reminder, in this segment, we put 25 seconds on the clock to get your hot takes so we can get to everyone and get to all of our stories. Philip Dubé out in Los Angeles County, I want to get your take on this one first.
In these sex cases, you got to come up with a plausible, realistic reason why victims would fabricate this. And usually it's about money, attention, rejection, or immigration. We've seen that in situations where if you can show you're a victim of some type of sex abuse, it gives you the right to remain in the country. I'm not saying that happened here, but I would explore it.
Jessica Lettingham, your opinion on Busfield being in court today. He's going to be behind bars for 5 days. The state is going to try and keep him there to not have any bond until a trial in this case.
And he should not be awarded bond. He went on today on his YouTube or whatever and was like, I tried to drive back from New York to Albuquerque. No, he's a flight risk. He's rich, he's powerful, and he has shown us that he doesn't comply with the law. This is a sick case that really shows the bad side of Hollywood.
Madeline Somerville, your take.
This is so sad because West Wing was my absolute favorite TV show of all time. I think that if he is compliant, it's going to look better for him in the long run. But just like Philip said, it's heartbreaking to see that it's possible that he would have taken advantage of the situation that he was in, where he could be a little bit more intimate emotionally and take that into the physical realm with these children. So just devastating.
Yeah, all of this happening on sets is what is alleged here, but he has denied all of the claims and says he is going to fight this and expects to be exonerated. Shifting gears to a case out of LA, Nick Reiner's former lawyer, Alan Jackson, revealed why he suddenly dropped the high-profile murder case. Reiner is accused of murdering his parents, famed director Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle. And when Jackson was asked about why he stepped away, he said he maintains that it's confidential, but he did talk about the plea that he thinks could be involved here. Nick now has a public defender, and his arraignment has been pushed to February 23rd rather. Jackson insists that Nick is not guilty. Take a listen.
Not guilty by reason of insanity exists in the penal code for a reason. It's very specific, and it's built into the justice system to try to deal with circumstances that literally are they're outside the purview of the justice system. The justice system is generally built to punish.
That was, of course, from Hot Mics, the podcast with Billy Bush. Let's bring back in our power panel, see what they think about Alan Jackson talking for the first time since stepping away from that case. Madeline Somerville, I'll start with you. 25 seconds.
So whenever a criminal defense attorney, who's a high-profile guy like this for sure, walks away, it's usually because the defendant can't afford it or because he has encountered evidence that lets him know that the client is guilty, and he cannot legally or in good conscience stand up in front of the judge and say and defend something that he knows is false. He can't lie, but he can lie to the people. He can lie to the public, right? That doesn't, and in fact, that actually coincides with his obligation as a zealous advocate. So,
all right, Jessica
went
Lettingham,
over on that one.
Your take on Alan Jackson, and what we're going to see ahead is going to be the public defender, who he says he knows is going to do a great job.
First, can I say that since the Karen retrial, he looks great. He got a tan, he got his hair done, he looks fantastic. Second of all, it's about money, or else it wouldn't be going to a public defender. Because he murdered, allegedly, his parents, he's not entitled to his inheritance, most likely in this case, which means he wouldn't be able to pay. So here, the siblings aren't probably helping pay the attorney fees.
Philip Dubé, your take, the resident expert here, there in Los Angeles County.
I do think it's a legal conflict of interest, but I think it's a financial one, meaning that under our probate code, if a testator is slayed, if you will, or killed by a beneficiary, they are cut out of the estate. They cannot inherit. My gut says that either an institutional trustee or probate counsel told the family that if they spend 5 cents on his defense, that they have to reimburse the estate. That puts Mr. Jackson and the family in conflict with the estate.
All right, that's the time, Philip. Hate to cut you off. Want to get to the next headline. Thank you for your opinion on that one. This is our third story. This is actor Kiefer Sutherland. He's been arrested after allegedly physically assaulting and threatening a rideshare driver that he was in the car with. This is according to police. Officers in Hollywood responded to the reports of an assault around midnight. And officers say the driver wasn't seriously hurt, didn't need any medical attention, but Sutherland was booked on an unspecified felony. He was given a $50,000 bond and was released a few hours later. Now, a source close to the investigation says that the confrontation was verbal and not physical and unfolded after the driver allegedly repeatedly refused to allow Sutherland to cancel the ride and let him out. That's according to NBC News. Let's bring back in our panel. Madeline, what do you think about Kiefer Sutherland and what he's facing?
There's for sure some facts and evidence that we do not know. Perhaps he had a firearm on him and he wasn't supposed to. I'm not sure what the felony would have been here because we don't have enough evidence to be able to determine that. But it's clear to me that they cannot use his past and whatever altercations he had in like the aughts when he had a couple of DUIs or whatever. They can't use that guilt to determine his guilt now.
All right, let's move to Philip Dubé on this one. Can a verbal threat be an assault, Philip?
No. A verbal threat is just that. It is a criminal threat. But you know what they have to prove? They have to prove that the victim was in sustained fear and that the threat was really intended as a threat as opposed to just venting, showing some frustration, that kind of stuff. Because if you think about it, we'd all be doing life for all of our threats in the aggregate.
All right, and that's the time for Philip. Moving to Jessica, he got a $50,000 bond. So this was handled pretty quickly, very different from what we just saw in the Timothy Busfield case. Is that surprising to you? He's, of course, pleaded not guilty to these charges.
Hollywood, you need to hold your celebrities accountable. It is surprising because he has a past, not just for alcohol, but for assault, where he headbutt a hairdresser in 2009. Again, it's quick because he is a Hollywood actor and he is famous and powerful, and I really think that that is a mistake here.
Jessica Lettingham, Philip Dubé, and Madeline Somerville, thank you all for your opinions this hour on Court of Opinion. We do have to leave it all there, but thank you for joining us and connecting with us this hour. I'm Julia Janae for Court of Opinion, reminding you that we all have opinions. They should be rooted in facts, and we should be striving to respect the other's opinion, even when we don't agree with it. It helps us all be better humans.